How can we compare how poor or rich one country is to another? While GDP per capita is typically regarded as the standard statistic, purchasing power parity can better assess an individual's purchasing power in a specific nation by adjusting for differences in living expenses and rates of inflation. Hi guys, welcome back to the channel. As we always discuss trendy topics, in today's video, we are going to know the top 5 richest countries versus the top 5 poor countries. I hope you'll find it interesting. However, before we go any further, make sure you subscribe to this channel and don't forget to hit that bell icon so you never miss any updates. Now without further ado, let's get into this. The top 5 richest countries. The top 5 countries presently generate 68% of global GDP. While an evaluation of GDP per capita, which takes into account a country's population, results in a whole shuffle of ranks, with the bulk of trillion-dollar economies slipping down the list. While economic indexes such as GDP or GDP per capita do not immediately reflect people's quality of life or well-being, they run an essential tool for measuring wider trends and applying in-depth research when making investment decisions. Number 1. Luxembourg. Let me tell you that Luxembourg is a tiny landlocked country that is bordered by Germany, France, and Belgium. Luxembourg is now one of the world's most significant financial hubs, even though its economic fate was tightly connected to the steel sector until the early 20th century. Since the late 1950s, Luxembourg has made significant attempts to diversify its economy away from steel. With a GDP of $79,593, it is the world's richest country. Intra-European Union commerce accounts for 84% of Luxembourg's exports, while the EU member states account for 88% of imports. The country's GDP per capita is $109,199, up 3.9% from the previous year. Number 2. Singapore. Next on our list is Singapore, which is a Southern Asian country with a population of 5 million people and a GDP of $61,567. Banking, shipbuilding, and electronics are among the most important economic sectors of Singapore. Even though the financial services industry remains the country's base, the country's services and production industries have continuously contributed to its economic status. Its economy grew by 3.9% in the second quarter of 2018. This is mostly due to the country's liberal monetary strategy and diverse economy. Number 3. Ireland. Ireland has become one of the wealthiest countries in the world as a result of its healthy economy, which is largely driven by trade and investment. Ireland's economic freedom score is 81.4, ranking it 5th in the 2021 index. With the arrival of international firms such as Microsoft, Google, and Apple, the country has turned itself into an exporter of medical, electrical, and computer technology. Its chemical and pharmaceutical industries, as well as natural resources like fisheries, minerals, and wood, all contribute to its economic prosperity. Number 4. Norway. Norway is situated in northern Europe, having borders to the east with Sweden, Finland, and Russia, and a long coastline to the west. It is now the 31st largest economy in terms of nominal GDP and one of the world's major suppliers of oil and gas. Norway has been one of the top 3 countries on the Human Development Index for numerous years. Norway's financial system is independent, which appears to be working in its favor. Industrialization has significantly aided the country's economic growth, with resource and petroleum extraction as well as fisheries contributing significantly to the economy. You might also want to note that Norway is a reasonably stable country due to its strong productivity, state-sponsored healthcare, and low unemployment rate. Number 5. Brunei. Brunei Darussalam has routinely ranked among the world's top 10 wealthiest countries for a long time. The country has GDP of $55,111, with crude oil and natural gas reserves making up the majority of its earnings. This year, the country is ranked 5th, with a GDP per capita of $81,612, an increase of 3.1% from the past year. The government's subsidization of food and housing, as well as the availability of free healthcare to its citizens, reflect the country's booming economy. Top 5 Poor Countries. The planet has enough money and resources to provide a basic level of life for the whole human race. The World Bank's 4-tiered rating system classifies the world's poorest countries as low-income economies. Number 1. Burundi. Burundi has the awful distinction of being the poorest country in the world. A devastating 12-year civil conflict between Tutsi and Hutu peoples in 1994 put the country back for decades. Less than 10% of the population has access to power, and even fewer have access to modern technology and the internet. The level of food insecurity is about double that of sub-Saharan African nations on average, with over 90% of its roughly 12 million inhabitants dependent on subsistence agriculture and the vast majority of them surviving on $1.25 or less per day. Food storage is a serious concern in Burundi. Number 2. Somalia. Somalis are losing hope as a result of decades of inner conflict and violence. An anticipated GDP growth rate more than 3% in 2020 was hindered by the coronavirus epidemic, locust infestation, and increased floods. However, according to the World Bank, Somalia's future might be brighter. Urban growth, increased of use, digital technology, and targeted investments in areas such as energy, sports, education, and health can enhance growth in the economy. Number 3. Malawi. Malawi is a largely peaceful country with a stable administrations since its independence from the United Kingdom in 1964. Malawi, one of Africa's smallest countries, has made achievements in recent years in boosting economic development and completing critical structural changes. Unfortunately, poverty exists, and the country's economy, which is heavily reliant on rain-fed crops, is subject to weather-related shocks. Lazarus Chakwera, a theologian and politician who was sworn in to take his position, stated that he intended to offer leadership that makes people grow. The epidemic put halt to that strategy. The country's GDP fell to 0.6% last year, from 4.5% the previous year. In Malawi, more than 70% of the population lives on less than $1.90 a day. Number 4. Mozambique. Mozambique is very placed strategically since 4 of its 6 borders are landlocked and rely on it as a gateway for trading goods. The former Portuguese colony claims an abundance of agricultural land and water, as well as abundant energy and mineral resources. However, the country's progress is hampered by a 15-year civil war that concluded in 1992, severe weather conditions, and political instability. A new billion-dollar French investment gives residents optimism for a better future. Number 5. Madagascar. Madagascar is the world's 4th largest island, located 400 kilometers off the coast of East Africa. Its incredible wildlife has inspired several Hollywood movies and documentaries. Despite being known for its incredible biodiversity, the country's thriving tourist sector has not been able to raise it out of poverty. The majority of the population is still reliant on agriculture for a living, making the country's economy particularly vulnerable to weather-related tragedies. The coronavirus epidemic showed this most vividly. Low-income people, typically migrants, residing in rich countries, found themselves unexpectedly jobless, homeless, and trapped. Some poor and developing countries were saved or cleverly avoided the outbreak's severe health and socio-economic consequences. Number of where a person sits on the income distribution scale has the best chance of enjoying a higher quality of life by living in a wealthier country. That's all for today's video. Thanks for watching it. If you like it, make sure to give it a thumbs up and share it with your friends. Also, don't forget to share your thoughts and valuable feedback with us in the comments section below. And while you're here, click to watch one of these 2 videos that are appearing on your screen. We'll see you there. Take care and stay tuned.